Welcome, everyone. Whether you're listening to this live or listening to a recording later, we're very glad that you've joined us for another week of insights. And I'm so excited to welcome you, Kate. Good to
So
see
glad to
you.
be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So, as is normal, our first question is always, how are you? How's your family? What have you been up to in these days of COVID?
So my husband and I are both working out of the house, and we've been we've been successful at doing it, right? We even have like shared kitchen time where I'm like, this is not, this is the Kate and Co time, but you don't have lunch break for another half an hour. But I think it's been, let's be honest, it's been tough and it's taken a lot of grit. And but it also there's been a great value of having some reflection. And that's both good and bad, but it's been a great time to even kind of for me to do a little resetting and reinventing, which is the subject of our conversation today.
Yeah, it certainly has been that kind of time, for sure. And I think, for those of us who are used to being on the road, I mean, I always saw you at every conference I was at, right? It's been quite a difficult time. I haven't been on a plane since March 4th, landing in LaGuardia, and I was supposed to be on a plane this month to HDC, and now, unfortunately, that turned all virtual as well. So I was super excited when I booked with Delta, and super sad when I had to cancel. So I don't know when I'm going to be on a plane again, but it certainly has given a lot of family time, which is a positive, and a lot of time for reflection and change, and just focusing in on something different than being on the road all the time.
Yeah, that's right. So you're good. Your family's well.
Yeah, we're good. We, as you know, moved to Colorado. We're breathing in fresh mountain air, and really enjoying a much lower cost of living than New York City. So hey, all is good, and we all recovered from COVID. So we're all good, and we're very, very thankful for that.
Good.
So getting into our topic today, I think that I've been a little surprised at some of the layoffs, I guess, that have hit so hard in especially the sales arena. And on the one hand, I can understand it. Like, if you're a salesperson to BT or group, I get it. But on the other hand, we've got to look towards the future, and, somebody's got to be concerned about 2021, and someone's got to be concerned about continuing relationships, which is, really concerning for a lot of the hotels. Like I say, I get it from an ownership perspective. I mean, what are you going to do? But, truly, we're going to be struggling as an industry if we don't have salespeople. So,
Yeah.
how do you believe sales and marketing is ultimately going to be changed because of COVID? And hopefully it's not reduced headcount. Hopefully it's something that looks a little bit different. What do you think?
I hate to say that the jury's still out, but I, like you, just because people aren't traveling doesn't mean that sales and marketing it should be, should be non-existent. In fact, it's very much the opposite. That if we're not doing strategy planning now, we're never going to. and
Yeah.
and this kind of goes to the reinvention, which we'll cover, a little bit later in our conversation. But it's this presumption, that it's not only the presumption, but it's the truth too, that we have been connecting with customers at the point of sale, and rather than at the point of impact, or the point of where there's something happening, or what we like to call the chaos theory, right? When a butterfly flaps
Hmm.
its wings on one end of the world, it creates a tsunami on the other. And I think, so I don't know if it's been kind of a cause and effect of how we have presented ourselves within sales and marketing, that we're always at that point of sale, versus that deep connection within
Mm-hmm.
organizations, that where we're able, where owners and leaders are able to say, you know what, we can furlough or lay them off. So I don't know if that's a of systemic of what we've been doing up until COVID,
Right.
or if that is kind of a blind spot. I think it's a little bit of both. But
Yeah. Yeah.
it worries me because there's organizations that are doing incredible things, and
Mm-hmm.
we're not there having the conversation. So within pharma, there's incredible developments within pharma, even within the auto industry, where they may not be at production use or production levels as they were before. They've been doing a lot of work as far as opening up their supply chain to other companies that invest or make PPP equipment. Excuse me, PPE equipment. And
Okay.
so, if we're not close to customers at that higher level business conversation, even right now, we're missing incredible opportunities. Just because people aren't traveling doesn't mean that there's a great deal of pent up energy, and we're not going to be at the table if we don't have sales teams there and marketing.
Huh. Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. I mean, we need strong commercial strategy right now, and that's a combination of a few players that
Yeah.
need to be at the table. So you mentioned this, and this is, of course, in the title of what we were talking about today. What does reinventing sales and marketing look like to you? How can you explain that um, from your perspective?
Absolutely. So I think it's the understanding of who, not only who our customers are, but who are the people and organizations that we need to have relationships with. I will always say that sales and marketing is about connecting and connections. What I will challenge our sales and marketing teams with is, who do we have connections with? And in fact, I just kind of put together a slide for us, because I know a lot of times when we see it, we realize it's easy to kind of consume and understand. So I don't know, Nicole, if you want to put that slide up.
There it comes.
Wonderful. So, people have spoken a great deal about the difference between transactional and consultative, um, and where we have to be within sales and marketing is towards that consultative side. And many times even people get a little bit confused. So right now, and what I've seen even prior to COVID, has been we've had a lot of relationships and great communication and partnerships. And if you just click it for me, Nicole, but it's been around this purchase phase. It's been at the point of purchase. So, just one, oh, back. So the conversation has been at this purchase phase, and so what that means is all of and they're wonderful people, a lot of admin teams, procurement, meeting planners. We have an incredible relationship with them. However, what we need to do is start shifting our relationships and our focus on that area of the recognition of impact. And those folks within an organization that are higher order business, are closer to the actual business versus just the meeting or the RFP and things like that. So us being able to say, hey, listen, the meeting is just a result of something larger, but us to have a relationship with the folks that are putting together strategy, that are seeing, and if you want to click it, Nicole, just to show what I'm talking about here, is is really being able to have conversations at higher level, higher order business conversations. And we kind of look at a lot of the sales approaches when we've done our work. There's two things that show up. Either they don't have a methodology, and it's more of, and I'm going to sound a little bit rough here, but it tends to be the truth. It's kind of professional visiting, right? Where it's a very product price driven sale that talks about what we have. And we've got we renovated our rooms, and we did this and we did that. Which is great as far as the purchase phase, but we have to be able to equip our teams to be able to have larger business order conversations at a different level. So we're at the point of the recognition of impact. When something happens to an organization like Deloitte, reinvesting their money in a number of different areas to create business opportunities, if we're not having those conversations with the people that are there, what happens is the lead comes, and it comes through maybe a C-vent, or it comes through a third party, and we're in a price-driven, product-driven sale, and we're paying more for that lead through cost of acquisition, and our profitability goes down, rather than us having a conversation at the beginning, kind of at the beginning of the pipeline. But here's the thing, and thank you for putting that up, Nicole. You can feel free to take that down. But here's the thing, the sales methodology and marketing methodology that we have now, either there is none being done, and it's kind of, hey, I go in and we have conversations and I talk to people about the hotel and what we're doing, or they're using a methodology that was actually developed in 1970, and we're expecting it to work in today's economy, and it doesn't. And so a lot of times those higher order business conversations have to have a different approach, a different methodology, a different thinking than what I learned back in the day. And so we're not invited into those conversations because we don't have the methodology, maybe the business acumen. That doesn't mean we don't have the skills. We just haven't been taught, how do I have that conversation at that point of recognition, or that point of need. And we wait, it's funny, people will say, but Kate, we talk about their needs. Well, the needs have become really a word for the requirements, right? The list on the RFP, rather than really what they care about and what they're driving towards.
So how do you suggest a salesperson get to the point of having those contacts where they can have those conversations? Because many times, you're responding to an RFP that a meeting planner perhaps has sent out, but it might be, BCD Travel sending it out on behalf of a company, right? And so they really are looking at the product and the price, and do you have the right facility and all of those things, versus that decision maker at the company that's deciding who they want to partner with, on a long-term basis, right? So how do you get to the level of having those conversations? What are some practical things people can do?
Yeah, absolutely. Such a great question, Carol. You have to answer the RFP, and you're going to answer it and you're going to do it. I want people to understand that you're in a transactional sale. That's number one. Understand that when an RFP is coming in, you're in a product and a price-driven sale. It's not about a relationship. You're just a vendor, and that's okay. But understand that you're in a transactional. But start working towards, or in the same time, understand that that RFP is only about one business opportunity. It isn't about all the business opportunities. And so as you're answering that RFP, start thinking about, instead of you and your hotel and the business at hand, you have to start thinking about the customer. And what I mean, and I love this because we've even had discussions around that. It's like, aren't we always been customer centric? Yeah, we have, but we've been customer centric at that very transactional level. So now what I'm proposing is we become customer centric at that top level. And in order to do so, we have to think about them exclusively. And don't worry about the product. The product will come. So the best way to explain this is an example I have it was a hotel in New York City, and they were trying to partner with a cosmetic firm, a cosmetic group.
Hmm.
And so, of course, they were talking about all the different trainings they had and everything. And here's their RFP. And I said, okay, that's transactional. I want you to talk about what do they care about? And they're like, well, they care about a meeting room. No, 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 they don't care about a meeting room. What is the organization? What do they truly care about? What are they striving for? And it was so fantastic because the sales manager there was young. You know, she hadn't been in the industry for a very long time. And I said, go look at the website and pretend, instead of being from the hotel business, put yourself in their shoes and tell me what you care about. And what she came back with was, they care about women of color. Yes, they care about winning market share from women of color. They don't care about your meeting room. Your meeting room is a requirement. You know, it's an RFP. It's one meeting. But if you can help them to become closer to, and not doing it for them, because we can't do that, we are a hotel, but how do I interact with them to helping them connect with women of color? Because that's where they're going to get their new market share for. So she started thinking about, how do we do this? Well, one, they had an international airline that was from Asia that had a number of different women, you know, of a different color palette. They also had, one of their top clients was the UN. And so she started looking at, hey, how many women are there in the UN from other countries that we could invite in and almost have a conversation with this cosmetic company and people with the UN and this airline company to talk about, for those women of a different color than, you know, my Minnesota white, to say, hey, listen, this is what we want. This is what we're looking for. So all of a sudden, instead of just being a hotel, she became a strategic partner.
Yeah.
And what's so funny is people are like, oh, we're always customer centric, and I'm not mocking us, because we are thinking of the client, but we're thinking about it at that transactional level. And so we went on a site visit, and I'll make fun of it just because it makes it memorable, but it felt like a really bad date, because all we did was talk about us. We, me, me. And at no point did they talk about the meeting. Yeah, of course they talked about the meeting, but then they said what they could do with it, versus saying, you know, I understand that you're really trying to, you know, do more through recruiting people that are of a different mindset, millennials and so forth. Talk to me more about that, and let's try to find the connective tissue so I can connect to you on that higher strategy level. Because then what happens? Then I get all the meetings and all the RFPs and all of the other stuff, because I'm connected to them at a more strategic level.
Yeah, no, that's good. I think, you know, I worked with a brilliant director of sales and marketing at one of my hotels in the past, and we had tried to get the Disney account, and they never would consider our hotel. And she found out something that the planner, not the planner, but the decision maker at Disney was very passionate about, and had all of these original print Disney things, you know, made up for the whole team as they came in for the tour, and donated to a charity that the company had supported, and that this particular person had supported. And we got a contract with Disney because we approached it differently. We didn't look at it as you're just coming on a site visit. We looked at it as, this is our opportunity to show you that we personally care, both for the people that are traveling in, and we personally care for what your company is passionate about and what you are passionate about. And, you know, and that was the first time in 15 years this hotel got the opportunity to bid on the Disney account and actually get it. So, and they ended up getting the executive team meeting that year as well. So, you know, it definitely, yeah, it's a different approach to selling. And I know you and I are in the business of going into our clients and saying, So what are your business challenges, and how can we be part of helping solve them? And also, what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? What are your goals? Where are you trying to get to? And what are your core values and those types of things. But I think, like you say, we have become so transactional on the hotel side that, we're missing that opportunity to build what I would call, for lack of a better word, kind of that stickiness,
Right.
with the client. Yeah.
You're trying.
Um,
We'll take it even a step further, and just to go after, because I
yeah.
know you have a really good question here too, is we'll take it even a step further. We like to push people a step further of asking them what their challenges are, of us to do a customer compass and say, take a look at what they're doing financially, take a look at what's happening within human resources, and say, I'm not an expert, but here's what I see, and giving them some insights, hindsights, and foresights. So it's not only saying, "Hey, listen, I've done my homework." That's not the point. But you're coming to them with, "I don't know. I'm in the realm of right, but I think I can help you, and let's have a really
Mhm.
exposed dialogue about about that." Like, for an example, one of the biggest issues at Ernst and Young is they're having huge difficulty recruiting millennials. And I understand it, because there were the perceived belief of Ernst and Young is, we're going to work you to the
Mhm.
bone, and we're going to give you a lot of
Yeah.
vacation, but you're never going to take it. And so millennials are like, I'm going to go work for Google. So us having us having this, I'm not right, but given what I've read, this is what I think we can help you with, and here's my idea. Um,
Mhm.
and so you're spot on, and it's really about, people always say, well, people like to do business with people they like, and that's true, but they like themselves more. And
Mm.
and it was interesting. I was lucky enough to be a part of a survey that we did with the London School of Business, and it was 154 executives that were interviewed, and the question was, when they met with salespeople, and this was all different types of sales, or all different industries, not
Mhm.
just hospitality, but when they met with salespeople, what percentage of the sales team, or the sales rep, or the director of sales, or whatever the role is, brought you information that was relevant? Out of 100%, 7% said that the salesperson brought them something relevant.
Mm. Yeah. That's that's a very low number. Um, so so as our sales and marketing, do you think that sales and marketing teams in general are prepared for this type of reinvention right
No,
now?
no. That sounds so harsh to say, but it's the truth. And because um, here's what I'm hearing, because we're sitting on a lot of webinars. Big fan of what you're doing here. But here's what we're hearing is that they're waiting for the return versus taking this
Mm.
time to reinvent themselves. And
Mhm.
and the other moniker that I hear is, we're going to go back to basics. There's two things in that basics if you peel it back. One is, I don't think they know what to do in today in the next world. So it's easy and a comfortable place for us to say, we're going to go back to basics. And it feels good, but that just means status quo. And the status
Mm.
quo, if your strategy is status quo, it's a losing strategy. Um,
Mm.
and so, and I don't, not to be too disrespectful, but I don't see, we don't, within the industry, we don't bring a lot of outside in thinking. That's the
Mhm.
reason why, some of the largest brands are still talking about sales philosophy from 1970.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
we tend to be very insulary, um, and this isn't a disrespect for our sales leadership, but very few of them see a difference of
Mm.
very few of them see this need to change, or because this is how we do it. and
Hmm.
breaking that
Hmm.
status quo. And so if our leadership or the tip of the spear doesn't see it, and even some of our CEOs and presidents may have been born out of the operational world or the development world, and they really don't
Hmm.
understand sales. I understand that it kind of goes back to, well, there's nobody traveling, so we don't need salespeople. But it
Right.
may be that they don't we just need to elevate our understanding about, kind of that revenue trifecta of sales, marketing, and revenue management.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you think sales and marketing resources are going to be deployed in the future? I was on a call with the leader from Omni, Andrew Rubinacci, and he had mentioned that they have reallocated a lot more people to marketing than sales right now, which I can
Good.
I can understand that move, and that they're definitely having to retrain, re-engineer, reallocate, redeploy resources differently. What do you think that's going to look like going forward in the next couple of years? And do you think we're ever going to go back to, how we were deployed with national sales and regional sales and on property? I mean, what is your perspective on that redeployment?
Yeah, I think I it's hard to see it because a lot of our friends and people we care
Hmm.
about have been furloughed, and so it's really hard to see it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I didn't see it coming. There was a study by Gartner that said, hey, listen, within the next 20 years, uh, the need for salespeople is going to go away because of the online presence and things like that. Now, what they did say in that same study is that transactional salesperson, when I meet with owners and then they say, can't we could get rid of our sales team. Well, you could, but then you're dependent upon that transactional, you're giving up your power to third parties, and you're never going to, it's going to be more difficult for you to be the leader in a market because it's a price product driven sale. So if you're good with that strategy, and to be honest with you, for the last couple of years, as RevPAR was, it wasn't that long ago where RevPAR was at
Mm.
6% growth. I could understand that, but now in the dip, people are feeling that. So those salespeople that are are transactional,
Hmm. Hmm.
I don't know. I would have difficulty standing behind it.
Hmm.
That being said, this is why it's so important not only for organizations to reinvent themselves, but for salespeople to personally take this on to say, hey, listen, there is an absolute critical need for that consultative salesperson. But I first have to know how to do it, and then I also have to build some competencies around what that looks like.
And
And
what would you say those competencies are? I mean,
yes,
what do they need to focus on right now?
yes. So it's so great that you asked this because we do a lot of work around competency development and what that looks like
Hmm.
for all three, particularly marketing and sales. But a lot of the competencies were built off of an operational mindset. So, for instance, when we, and understandably so, because all of us were kind of born under that operational guise, and I'm not again disparaging an operational mindset, but in a time where we have to create revenue and create
Hmm.
demand, it takes a different animal. So for instance, teamwork. Um, Teamwork is rated very high as far as a competency in an operational setting. In a true sales model, your top performers usually aren't the best teamwork because they're hunters. And so it's this that, and not, that's just one example of, and there's a couple others that I wanted to give an example of the gap that we're seeing
Yeah.
based upon that of gosh, he or she is just really team orientated. Well, that can mean that they're actually willing to be more relationship versus being a driver, and and and
Mm.
um, and actually getting the deal. and
Mm-hmm.
versus, I want to make everybody happy. I want things to be harmonious. I'm willing to give up that drive for that harmony. But for instance, kind of going back to what we want to see within salespeople, we want to see them strategic. We want to
Mm-hmm.
have them have a much stronger business acumen, not only for the hotel. I always think it's interesting where they're like, yeah, they really have to understand the hotel's P&L. They do. I would much rather want them understanding a customer's P&L, right? Because yes, I was a
Yeah.
better salesperson once I understood the P&L of our hotel. I became a great salesperson when I understood the P&L of my customers, because now I
Mm-hmm.
can have a different type of relationship and I can have that higher level. So one is having a strategy minded. Two, being able to learn how to have conversations in areas that were notoriously uncomfortable: finance, um, operations, IT, places like that, versus just
Mm-hmm.
HR, the common suspects, HR, travel, meetings. Those again are the transactional. When I hear that when sales teams are meeting with different points in the financial group or the development teams or whatever that may be, or engineering, I'm like, we're having different conversations than we're having a beyond the box conversations.
Yeah. Good. So I've seen, again, a lot of companies who have unfortunately furloughed large swaths of their sales team, and they may have shifted some dollars to marketing, but for the most part cut out a lot.
Yeah.
Do we still need sales and marketing right now?
Yes, we absolutely do. Because what's going
Especially looking at sales, Kate, like
to,
I've seen it more in the sales arena than I thought I would, I guess. And like I say, I can get it from the owner's perspective, but how is it, as a commercial team, like inside of a company, whether that's an individual hotel, a regional, corporate, whatever, how is it that you can have a conversation with ownership about why sales is relevant right now? How do you have to position it?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that understanding of where I don't blame them for if we're working on that transactional level. If our salespeople are working on that transactional level and the relationships are meeting planners and RFPs and things like that, that can be delayed. But the truth of the matter is, if I was to one, if I walk into a hotel, even some amazing management groups, I don't even see a business development plan for accounts or
Mm-hmm.
organizations. And so, for instance, there was a hotel I was working with, huge company, JP Morgan, and they had three contacts, all of which were transactional. I don't need that transactional conversation right now, but explaining to owners that these are the things that are happening within our top companies. I mentioned Ford, Deloitte, many different organizations are looking at how they pivot, but we're not going to know that because there's nobody having those business conversations. And so the leads are
Mm-hmm.
going to come, but they're going to be discounted, and we're going to get nervous, and we're going to sell our inventory to OTAs. And so we're going to have extreme high cost of acquisition. And
Mm-hmm.
we're having a transactional relationship that's not sticky.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's going to be a bit of a death spiral. And so for those of your for those of the audience here, is start looking at some of those demand generators.
Mm-hmm.
I talk about a butterfly flapping its wings. There are things that are happening within those organizations that are going to cause, there's going to be a need for travel and meeting people. And
Mm-hmm.
for us to understand that at that level, so we're having the conversations here versus waiting for things to open, and then we're at, with the CVB or the CVent or whatever have you.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. I think we have a question from the audience here. Let me see. Um, Okay, so is some of this leading back to some of the quote unquote old school entertainment and needing to change those budgets to be able to build up those relationships? On the idea that by building the relationship allows a team to move out of the higher cost of acquisition from Cvent and such.
Great question, Sean. Yeah, I don't know. It could be entertainment. If that's how your customer interacts, yeah, then do it. But I also don't want it to be shallow of, here we're taking somebody, I've been there too, where we've taken somebody to dinner and it's not that decision. It's not that decision maker, but we've taken him or her to dinner, 10 times now. If that's
Yeah,
what it takes to have that more strategic conversation, I couldn't agree with what he said more. I think my only pause is just because buy a bottle of a really good champagne or a really good bottle of wine, that doesn't mean I earn that relationship. What earns that relationship is not the cookies, and it's not, sending the shoes, which is still being done. I can't believe it's having that, like I mentioned, that conversation of, this is what I think. I'm not I'm not in your shoes, but this is what I've understand. I think I have something. And you don't have to be right. You just have to be in the realm of right to start a conversation that's much grander than dates, rates, and space.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that I think entertaining could be a path
Part of
to
it.
having
Yeah.
that conversation. But, what I've seen a lot with those entertainment opportunities is business is rarely discussed. And I agree that, sometimes you can build that more personal relationship with some of your contacts, and it goes a long way towards the future. But I think being able to actually open up the conversations about, what are your business challenges, and let's talk about what's going on in your business. It doesn't have to have anything to do with hotels. Let's tell me more. Tell me what you're facing, what keeps you up at night. Those types of conversations, so that then you can lend some of your thought leadership and your intuition and your insight and your business acumen to them. And so, I think it's making sure that those conversations go down the right path. Sean had a follow-on question, so let me see what this is. Maybe that relationship building is not always entertainment, but the push of going to meet them in the hard time of the year. Are you going to Chicago and New York in January versus September and October?
Right.
As long as Chicago and New York allow you to go from your state. I'm sorry, I just had to throw that out there with COVID. But yes, I mean, I think it's finding that time where that company can actually have that space to meet with you, because January and February may not be good for an accounting firm, right? Because that's crazy time, right? So you got to find out kind of what is their fiscal year, because it may not be January to December. You got to find out when's their peak time. When do they have some bandwidth to actually be able to meet with you? Because sometimes that's just super hard to even gain that access.
That's right.
But being customer centric, you have to think about it from their schedule and their perspective.
Absolutely. And I think Sean makes a great point. It's, hey, listen, I talk about sales and marketing I can do, it's like Dr. Seuss, right? I can do it there. I can do it here. I can do it there. I can do it anywhere. But putting that strategy first, putting those insights first. I don't care if it's on a Zoom or of course, I'd much rather be face to face, wouldn't we all? I mean, my goodness. But if it's not, I don't care if you're having a cup of coffee or if you're having, a dinner at a steak. I think leading with strategy. It was interesting. I was with a hotel group and they were doing a sales call, which is one of my favorite things to do. And we were sitting there and we were watching, salespeople coming in and out, in and out, in and out. And, we had the big basket of cookies and I was like, oh, goodness gracious, and here we go, we've all been there, right? But it was funny because I was watching, people from PwC and Accenture, when Accenture was still around or no, Accenture's still around, aren't they? Who knows? And Deloitte, and they were coming in, they don't have cookies, right? And I just thought, isn't it funny? Wouldn't to see a consulting firm walk in with a whole bunch of, cookies and whatever? What is a value? I always think about when you leave a customer's office, did you give them something that it was so valuable, they're willing to write a check for it? Versus buying their time through cookies, and that doesn't mean that Sean shouldn't go to Ruth Chris or wherever he chooses, but I think it's that whole idea of I'm going to give you some insights to help you become bigger, better, faster, stronger, and that's valuable. Both of our time is valuable, but then also you have to have that strategy and thinking to back that up.
So you mentioned something, and I've mentioned it a couple times as well, customer-centric sales and marketing. And you early on you said, haven't we always in hospitality been customer-centric? And I think we definitely at many of our companies been guest-centric, right? So the guests checking in.
Yes.
But how are we customer-centric to the buyer of travel?
Yeah.
And how do we do that in sales and marketing? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, God, Carol, it was so funny, and this is probably going to land harsh. If anybody are you offended by this, please give me a call. I'd love to hear. But I have been on so many sales calls where I will say the least customer centric department in the hotel can be sales and marketing. Because at the front office, we're about timeliness, checking in, the warm, friendly. But when we go see a client, we want to talk about ourselves. We did this. Wow, we got this. And again, it kind of goes back to a bad date. In marketing, instead of having marketing that's based upon the point of inspiration, we're looking at point of sale, which again, point of sale is great. And within the revenue trifecta, perfect place for revenue management to be involved in that marketing space and doing the promotions and thinking about that. Our marketing team should be thinking about the point of inspiration way before they even book the room. And so when I say that we're the least customer centric, that means stop talking about the physical hotel. Get so interested. I believe it was Mother Teresa said it. My grandfather said it too. Be interested, not interesting. Be interested, not interesting. And so many times we go in there and it's a me show. So just having and we have at Kate Bird and Company, we have a lot of thought organizers to help us go through this customer buying journey way before they even think about it. So for an example, within marketing, we were doing work with a resort, and one of their most profitable customers was the Hasidic Jewish community. And so they were doing a ton of promotions, and they were doing geos and all of this kind of stuff. And I said, wait a second. What's the point of inspiration? Why are they coming here? Well, of course, we had kosher kitchens and all that, but why here? So we started peeling that onion to try to find that point of inspiration versus doing all of this work around the point of sale, which is perfect. Revenue management are so equipped to do this so well. Where sales and marketing needs to go is, what's the point of inspiration? So in this example, we started peeling that onion back, and we did some investigating and had some conversations. And what we realized, it was young Hasidic Jewish couples that were having troubles in their marriage. And so we said, okay, wait a second. If I'm a Hasidic Jewish couple, where's the first place I go for marriage counseling? The rabbis. And so we said, okay, wait a second. How much of our conversation are with the rabbis? 0. So we started looking at, hey, how do we have conversations with the rabbi in their congregation, their temple, to help them to be more effective within their synagogue and their congregation? And so what we put together was this whole program that we became the resort of choice, and the rabbi would give us their homework that the couple would have to do during their time at the resort. And so there would be a picnic basket, and in the picnic basket was some of the things that the rabbi wanted the couple to talk about. So that's what I'm talking about of hey, listen, we can show up, and we should show up about promotions and campaigns. But if we're customer centric, we're getting back to not just the segmentation, but why is that segment trap? What's going on with them? What's happening? What's their point of inspiration where they say, honey, we're going to we're going to go to Colorado. Let's get the heck out of New York.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting, I think, too, when you say that, the point of inspiration, I think that there have been some companies that have actually done a really good job in that inspiration to travel when we can't travel right now. So many of us can't travel. So they're focusing on how do we inspire people even though we can't get on a cruise line right now, or how do we inspire people even though we can't go to Hawaii right now? Like how, what is it that we do, right? And so I think there have been some really great examples of that, and there are some companies that I think have been really great at that inspirational travel. I think Hilton did a campaign a couple of years ago where they plastered all the airports with these vacation shots that certainly made me want to go, right away. Right. And it wasn't anything about book now whatsoever.
Right.
So, but I think that we've lost, sometimes we've lost that because it's so easy for us to now track and know how much money comes from a pay-per-click ad or whatever, right? So we know that return and we're all about that, versus there still is that inspiration side of things. Yep. That we can't lose sight of that as hoteliers, because it's very, very important. And I think that during COVID, people have realized that that's important. And I say, don't lose that going forward. Yeah.
Carol, in my opinion, you couldn't be more spot on. It was interesting. There was a resort in LA, and I'll call them out because I think I want to applaud. I want to applaud Terranea. Did this great campaign, so great. In fact, you and I were at Terranea together.
But we were. So I've been getting that.
Let's go back. Yeah. But they did a great thing about the sea lions, that the sea lions had returned to the cove, and it had nothing to do with the product, but this inspirational thing of, oh my gosh, even though COVID is horrible, there's a part of COVID where our planet is healing, and the return of the sea lions, and isn't this inspirational? And in that moment, I was like, the second I can get out of this joint, I'm going to Terranea. On the flip side, there are companies that need help in thinking about this. So, and kind of on both sides, I see brilliance, and I see the this whole discounting, because discounting does not create demand, where people are saying, well, we'll waive the resort.
Are you sure? Are you sure?
I don't know. There's
I thought if I just lowered my price.
But there was, a large brand, a large luxury brand even was talking about the percentage off. Another group was getting highly touted because they were doing almost like a gift card, for future purchases. And it was written up in Forbes. And because Forbes thought it was great, then everybody's like, isn't that a great idea? And I'm like, no, it's not. It actually it fell very tone deaf on travelers, because they're like, I'm not going there, even if I know what you're trying to do. And so this whole idea, or, waiving resort fees doesn't hit the point of inspiration. That's point of sale. And we've got to be really careful right now with, if there is no demand, discounting doesn't work.
Yeah, no. And we've seen hotels that have just continued to deeply discount, and some who have gotten guests that they didn't want to get at a 4-star hotel, right, and have had some issues from that. Some who are sitting, in their comp set 6 of 6 and $30 lower in ADR than their competitor, and 1% higher in occupancy, which doesn't equal equality there, right? So I think that, when we've always had this conversation, is there a demand problem or a price problem? And right now there's a big demand problem, right? But looking forward, like looking to 2021, we've only got a few more minutes here. Looking to 2021, what should sales and marketing people be doing now to look at 2021 and 2022? Recovery is going to come. I know it might feel right now where we sit that with it, raging in our country, that it's going to be a while, right? It may feel that way, but it is coming, and you can't wait till it's here to inspire and to sell and to market and all those pieces, right? So, what should teams be looking at to impact the future?
Absolutely. There's two things that come to mind. One, how we engage with customers has to be completely different than how we were doing it post or pre-COVID. And even in pre-COVID, it wasn't effective. We had huge increases in cost of acquisition. We had we had great occupancy, but ADR it didn't follow even close to that trajectory. So even then was time for us to pivot. And it kind of took this for us to have and I hate it. It took us to pivot. So looking at how do we engage with customers differently at a higher order business conversation? And that, when I say business conversation, it's not just corporate, right? It's organizations within Smurf organizations. It's even weddings and things like that, having a different type of conversation that's versus product and price driven. Number two is strategy. We do a great deal of work within this whole revenue strategy, and we look and we see, we even have an asset called the Most Profitable Customer Accelerator, MPC Accelerator. And what we see is financial expectations and then a whole bunch of tactics. And the tactics are even kind of low level random acts of activity that make us feel good. But do they really drive impact versus look at all the things that I did, right? It's kind of that manufacturing mindset. Look at my output. What are the things that you did that had a ripple effect or impact on that overall strategy? And what's sad is in the work that we do, many times the strategies are just talking points, or they're not even there. So we're kind of going through this. Shakespeare said it best. He said, "Life is a tale told by idiots, full of sound and fury that signify nothing." Meaning we're on just this incredible pace to do stuff, but maybe we need to slow down to speed up and get aligned with what's the financial expectation, what's that strategy that's going to join it, and then what are the tactics that are going to be most impactful versus just professional visiting.
Yeah. The strategic, I think, has been missing for a long time in our sales and marketing plans, and they've been written and put on a shelf, right? And I think that, or it's been about the outputs and not the outcomes.
That's right.
And so, being able to have a strategy that says, okay, looking 18 months forward, this is the outcome I want. Because this fits into our 4 top strategies as a company, our 4 top financial goals, all those things, like, and being able to then take that and know what your outcome is that you're going after, and then you can put the tactics and the outputs, together that support that versus being diametrically opposed to what I'm trying to accomplish.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you. That's perfect.
Yeah. Well, Kate, I'm going to give you one last question because we are out of time. So looking into your crystal ball, so when do you believe business travel is going to return, and when do you believe group travel is going to return?
So I think business travel, I think we're going to start to see more business travel after Labor Day. travel, like Deloitte, Ernst and Young, PwC, a lot of them are waiting till Labor Day, and a lot of that is because of liability. That they can't take on the liability of people traveling until those safeguards in place. Group travel, we're going to see it come back as well, but not like how it was, where the big conventions and things like that are gone, are kind of gone for a while until we actually have a vaccine, and then they're going to come back in full force. What I would also urge people to do is think about, I call it group business in transient clothing. And so for those salespeople out there that don't think transient is their space, and that's their world is just the RFP, there's group business that book under transient channels, such as consulting projects and things like that, that have to come back because they can be in breach of contracts. And so they will come back. Now, it won't be going through the normal book, group channels, but it is group business. It's just in transient clothing. And so hunting them, and not at the transactional level, hunting them at the larger business level.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think what people need to keep in mind is full-on business travel to where we were is going to be a while. But there are some things that companies have to continue doing. As you said, they've got to maintain those contracts. And even though there's been some pullback on some of that travel, if it's client essential travel, a lot of companies are still doing that. So, it's you've got to look at, who services pharmaceutical, who services financial, who services, insurance, who could service some of these government agencies, that kind of thing, from a consulting standpoint, right? So, because that is still active, because a lot of these large corporations are also reinventing themselves and how they do business, and possibly even launching new product lines like Kodak is doing. So I think that looking for those opportunities out there to hunt for is the way it's going to be. Well, Kate, listen, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been very insightful. Kate Berta and Company is her company. She does an amazing job at consulting companies to think at that strategic level and reinvent themselves in sales and marketing. So thank you again for being on. Thank you for being a good friend to us.